and like everything was just kind of like stressing me out, honestly. And that's not what we're here to do. Sorry. Anyways. Merry meet and welcome. I'm Taylor, and today we're going to be continuing our friend saga, and we're still working on the pizzas. So if you've been following along, definitely check out the playlist if you haven't. Otherwise, today we're going to be making the hand spread so that we can do Joey's specials, 2 pizzas. So for the hand spread, it's mainly going to be about using a food processor, which, you know, for us means blending. But the main thing that I wanted to bring out regarding this is that, and it comments it here to a note from Chef Monica. So this recipe calls for calibrated chili peppers and oil. It's highly recommended that you use them, but if you need to substitute, you can use another chili, and you can also use a separate chili oil, but the flavor will be different. So unfortunately, that's what we're going to be doing today, because just where I live, it was very difficult to find calibrated chili peppers. I did find out that apparently Trader Joe's does carry even their own branding, but my Trader Joe's is the smallest one you will ever see. It's just due to the city that I live in. Vegan options, like health stores, despite having quite a variety of health stores, they, for some reason, only carry a certain kind of products, which does make sense, again, due to the city that I live in. The people who are shopping there aren't necessarily buying these kind of things. So it is apparently available in other cities, is my point. I'm just rambling now. But I wanted to let you know that this recipe is a lot easier. You can definitely still accomplish that part of the flavoring. But otherwise, I think we did really good when it comes to veganizing this recipe. And that part didn't even need to be veganized. So it's just like working and adjusting. And yeah, so you know your flavor is going to be a little bit different, but as long as you get kind of the main essence, I think that's what's most important. And also that it tastes good, right? So let's go ahead and get started with making the ham spread. Merry meet again. So to get us started, we have all of our ingredients here. I'm just going to essentially go through an overview here on what you would do normally. Is you would just prepare your peppers, remove any stems. If there are seeds, you can remove those too. The chili peppers too, you can just buy the chili peppers themselves. I ended up going with the poblano because I love poblano peppers, and I think they're a really great pepper to buy, like kind of in bulk too, because then you can like stuff a poblano with pepper. You can like use it in like so much stuff, and I think there's just a lot more versatile. Also, I don't know if it's because of Scooby-Doo or not, but those peppers look so spicy, and I know I love the spice of the poblano. It is still a spicy pepper, do not get me wrong, but I love the flavor dynamics in it. So I'm going with a pepper I trust within this experiment. So we're gonna see how the rest of this goes. And then, yeah, also because I just had to give myself grace with the fact of like, hey, you're not really finding this, you're not sure how this pepper goes, and like everything was just kind of like stressing me out, honestly. And that's not what we're here to do. Sorry. Anyways, so the other things that we had to adjust, I also encourage you to check out your cultural stores in your area too, because you never know what they may have. I did that, and they still just didn't have those chili peppers in oil, but there was a lot of different chili sauces. I couldn't find a chili oil that I liked, and so I ended up going with a sauce. So the reason why that's important is because, so this is a sauce, it's thicker, and the other thing to note about it though is I almost got harissa instead. So whenever you're like, oh, I'm not sure what to do, I'm not sure what I want, things like, you can look up what that ingredient typically looks like, tastes like, and sometimes those websites also have like suggestions for like alternatives and things like that, but also for like chili oil, because I was like, I almost was about to just make my own for you guys, because it essentially is like red peppers in oil. There's a whole bunch more process to that, and like there's different spices you can add, and just I mean, if you remember our marinara sauce, it's very similar in the sense of like, hey, you can make this to taste exactly how you want, the flavors how you want, to make them robust and whatnot. But when it's oil and infusing it, it can there's a lot more, it's a lot more delicate in my opinion. So that's why we ended up not doing it. I didn't want to mess it up, but I wanted a very successful ham spread, especially because it really is mainly for this that I needed it. Also, so going back to the fact that you can use harissa too, because it has mainly the same components and ingredients as the chili oil that we were looking for. So I ended up not going for that because I actually found this sweet ginger chili oil or chili sauce, and I love ginger, so I also really like, and we've been adding like a little bit of sweetness to our pizzas a little bit, and so I just think it's really nice there. Okay, so there's that part. A little bit more there. So we have our poblano peppers. We chunked them up a little bit because it didn't say to cut the peppers at all, so those just go into our blender or food processor. And then we're actually going to leave the oil to the side. So part of the instructions, if you have the chili peppers in oil, is to take them out of the oil, destem, whatever you need to them, put them in the food processor, and then this is actually going to be like one of the last things we add. So we're going to leave that there. Because of that, okay, let's just take it step by step. So let's go ahead and get into the next part of this, and it calls for some fancy pig meat or beef. So it calls for either the guanciale, no idea if that's how you pronounce it, or the pancetta. Again, no idea if I'm pronouncing these right. But again, I just looked up what those essentially are, and they're very similar to that of bacon. So because that's essentially what we're going for, I just tried to find a good vegan bacon. So if you've seen, we have here Sweet Earth. It's hickory and sage flavored benevolent bacon, so it's plant-based substitute for pork bacon. It's smoky, saucy, and savory, and that's why we went ahead and used it, is because I want to get as much like flavor as you would from a natural meat, and so this has a lot of those flavors added to it, and I can smell it right now, so I'm hoping that's going to just help, again, get those flavor dynamics and flavor profile that we're trying to accomplish here. Really great thing about making this recipe vegan, by the way, is it doesn't say if she wants the meat cooked or not, and it doesn't say in the recipe to cook it or not. But that's raw meat in the normal recipe, so it's like you kind of, do you be like on the safe side, or is it supposed to be raw? That's still like kind of scary to mix it with everything else. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about the original recipe, but that is part of the reason why we don't eat meat, right? It's a lot safer to eat plants, you know, unless they're poisonous. No, anyways, sorry, I'm having a day, which is why this is happening. So thank you for being here. Let's go ahead, and I cubed it up in here because it just saves dishes. And then same thing, just add it to your food processor. So her recipe calls for about half a cup. I probably have a little bit more than half a cup, but because I'm not really going to be using this bacon for anything else, I just figured I'd use all of it. Like, yes, it's nice to have like a couple strips for yourself. That's great. And you can have it with anything else that you're wanting. But because, again, I'm trying to get as much flavor as possible, I'm really just adding it to this. So now the next thing that it calls for is red wine. It calls for a 1/3 cup of red wine. I do not, I'm sober, so and red wine used to be my main thing. So did not think it wise to get red wine even for a recipe. And so I ended up looking up like, again, going back and like I had to do a little bit of research into like how can I really make this happen, because there's a lot of things I have to substitute. Like I think I had to substitute every ingredient except for 2, and one of them I ended up modifying, which I will talk about in just a second. Anyways, back to the red wine. So we're using red wine vinegar because that is one of the best substitutes, and again, we're trying to get those same flavors, and red wine vinegar is supposed to be one of the ones that still maintains the flavor profile. So it's great. And it did call for a 1/3 cup. We're using about a 1/4 cup here just because since it is vinegar instead of straight red wine, I personally do not like vinegar that much. So I want to make sure that that vinegar flavor doesn't come out as much as the red wine. So kind of how I compromise is just by doing a little bit less. Also, I think it has more acidity, so I want to lessen that. All right. So now we come to our veggie salami. So this, I'm so grateful I found this actually. I was going to use this one thing. I was going to use a vegan pastrami, which is different from salami. It's a different kind of animal, and that alone says so much about it. But then also people tend to like have salami cold versus having, maybe it's because they're cured meats, and so cured meats you don't have to cook typically, right? Okay, maybe that's what I'm missing. sorry, just me thinking about other things, because you don't typically cook salami. It is cold. And I don't know about the pancetta or whatever. So maybe that's why, because they're technically both fall underneath, or all of those meats fall underneath being cured. So maybe you don't, that's why there's no instructions on whether it needs to be cooked or not. With that being said, let's get back into this. So I found this. It calls for half a pound. It's only 5 ounces. Here's the thing though. I don't like salami that much. Like, I never did. I just think it's funny saying it now. Because it's like, well, obviously. But anyways, so with this though, it was literally $3 to buy this. Half a pound is only 8 ounces, so we're only about 3 ounces short. And I'm not too mad about that. Like, a lot of times too with vegan foods, like, they pack a lot of flavor into them for the meats, because they're like, we really want you to taste, to make sure you're getting the taste that you're looking for. And yeah, so I'm very satisfied with this. If I wanted to, I could have gotten 2, because then that would be 10 ounces, and then same thing, you would just have a little bit extra, or you can add that little extra in. So it just depends, again, what makes sense to you. But I was shocked that I was able to find this, but again, because of the city that I live in. So we're gonna add our vegan salami. Alright, so now here's where it is a little bit of an adjustment, because they only call for 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and this is where I misread a little bit. I thought you added all the ingredients at once, but this goes in a little bit later. So the reason why I say that is because it called for a 1/3 cup of the chili peppers in oil, which that's so hard to measure, which is why I just used 1 poblano pepper that was like medium sized. And then I have about a 1/6 of a cup, so a little bit half, or it is half of what it calls for. And then since it's a sauce, it's thicker, so it's not going to drizzle as much, so that's apparently what we're wanting. Sorry, whenever it's a spread and we're blending things together, even in a food processor, I am like, doesn't that just all mix together? Like, sometimes it matters when you put something in, sure, but when it comes to something like this, I'm not so sure. So anyways, we're going to honor the recipe though, but we're going to thin this out with some olive oil. That's why I have some extra olive oil, because that's exactly what it is. It's just extra oil in the chili oil. So we're just going to do this, and you can do it with any neutral base. And then we're going to leave 2 tablespoons and add those to our processor or blender. And then I'm just going to mix this a little. Because we're just, again, trying to thin it up to where we can now pour it. And then it looks a lot closer to a 1/3. Okay. Last but not least, now we're going to add our, well, it's not even last. Anyways, we're going to add our butter. It calls for half a stick or 4 tablespoons or or a 1/4 cup. Fun fact, if you're ever trying to figure out conversions, 1/4 cup is 4 tablespoons. 4. And then from there is of course other math to do. But like then an 1/8 of a cup is only 2 tablespoons. Like finding that out sometimes is like, oh my gosh. So just some fun there. Anyways, so let's go ahead, add in our butter. We're gonna process this. So we're gonna process this until it's about a thick paste and about 5 to 7 minutes. Since I'm in a blender, it actually should hopefully get it a lot sooner because it beats food faster. That's its whole thing. So yeah, let's go ahead and check in with that, and I'll check in with you guys after. Okay, so I apologize. We're gonna step in here real quick. And what you are supposed to be doing while it is pulsing is you're actually, if you have a blender or food processor, if you have a food processor, they typically come with this. If you have a blender, sometimes it is an extra feature, so you can just add it in between pulses. But while you're working on forming this thick paste, is actually you're going to slowly incorporate the oil. You're going to drizzle it either down that spout, or you're going to just add it in between pulses. So with that, we will now officially check back in with you real soon. Merry meet again. So here's our finished ham spread. So it definitely looks a little bit more yellow in color than I would have guessed. I do think that's probably just more due to it being vegan meat versus anything else though. But it's decently chunky. I think you can have, again, same thing with the marinara sauce. Just make it whatever consistency feels good and right for you, but you still want it to be a bit of a paste since it is meant to be a spread. So you want it to at least be essentially spreadable ham. Anyways, this then can actually just go ahead and sit in the fridge for up to 2 weeks. So definitely we're gonna use this for a pizza, but we're gonna see what else this is used for in the book because it is listed as a staple. So it can't just be for one pizza. And we're gonna be back with more ham spread stuff. I also, just to check in, I feel very much better. So thank you guys for being here and helping me with my mental health today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.